Alright, hey, how's it going again, guys? Thanks for clicking on the video. Little update here on the TRX450 project. So we got the engine out. We're back down to frame. In the last video I showed our motor mounts down here that we had to cut off. So those are all cut off, cleaned up. The back, we ended up notching all of this out, and now that gave it room for the motor to slide back and get our pivot bolt in. Another problem we had is we got the swing arm on, which I'll show eventually in this video, but our shock, the reservoir on our factory shock, hit the back of the engine. So what we plan on doing is we're going to move the upper shock mount back like probably roughly a 1/4 inch. So I cut the whole upper shock mount off and just cleaned it up, so that's ready to get an all new bracket. Here it is, actually right here. So this sat basically like that, kind of down. The way we're gonna do it is move it just up and back just a little bit. So it won't be too much of a different shock angle, it will be a little bit. But we're also gonna extend it just a hair out to probably like an 1/8 or a 1/4 inch away from the frame. That'll let us keep our same ride height for the factory shock, so it takes the same length of shock, but moving it back to a more upright position will actually make the shock a little bit stiffer, which is fine because we can adjust that with valving and springs and everything. The other thing we did is the pivot bolt, this sleeve right here, you want to take the trade? Yep. So this is the pivot bolt. This sleeve goes into the engine. It was factory, but the pivot bolt didn't fit, so I reamed this out and I put holes in this and this with the grease zert on the pivot bolt, and now this fits nice and tight, and it's greasable for while it's in the engine. So there's no slop on this at all. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put the sleeve in the engine, put the engine back into this with the swing arm on and everything, and just kind of tie it all up so that we can get measurements for our front engine mounts and all that stuff, because we kind of got to do one thing at a time, get something set. That way we're measuring off the actual placement. So that's what we're about to do now. All right, so we're going to put the sleeve goes in the engine first, and that goes right here in the pivot hole. So that's how we have to set the engine in, and then the swing arm slips on each side of that. So we're going to do that. We're going to set the engine in next. Remember, we don't have the frame ratcheted down right now.
Yep.
Alright, so we got the engine in now. We went ahead and put the subframe back on. If you look right here, we've got a strap here so that this is our height where the swing arm was before we cut that rear shock mount off. And if you just look right here, we got this is factory rear shock, and it's bolted to the bottom. This is the top shock mount. We bolted on just loose, but if you look in here, that's where the reservoir hits the engine. So this is supposed to go forward just like maybe an 1/8 inch more. But the plan is, if you watch our gap here, we're going to bring the shock back about that far and make a new mount. So it'll be back, so angle's more vertical. But if you look at our gap here now, that gives us plenty of clearance for this shock, and the plan is to have a remote reservoir shock. So that's what's going on right here. Next thing, down here, I move all this stuff out of the way. If you look under here, this might be a bad example, but if you look under where the engine mount bolt goes there, we're actually gonna have to put a little dimple in the frame right here, which we're gonna cut this out and weld a new curved piece in, and then we're gonna extend this gusset on the lower frame rail back to about here. So this is a factory gusset. We're gonna extend it all the way back here with another piece. The engine's actually gonna lift up a little bit still, so it's just gonna be the smallest little dimple. And then our front engine mount, we'll get the engine propped up where we want it and everything, but our front engine mount will make a flat plate that comes up in kind of like nice curve shape with an aluminum spacer in here, so that we'll bolt a flat plate on here first, get a measurement, and then we'll make all these pieces. So now that this is all lined up, all we got to do is take measurements, do a slight bit more frame modification for that lower engine mount, and that's what we'll be working on next. So be right back with that.
Alright, so I will show you a couple things that we got going on right now. We got the notches cut out. We got a bolt through it. It'll clear it now through the engine. And then we're gonna weld those in and brace it up, and show you the other side. Same thing, we'll go all the way through, we're gonna weld that one up, and now we're just working on the front engine mounts. So what are you making?
This is the front engine mounts. I'm just shaping them. This is actually both sides welded together. That way they come out exactly the same. So I'm just cutting them down to the shape I have on here, and then we'll smooth them and make them look pretty after that. But almost done here. All right. Front engine mounts done. This is what we came up with for a design. So we go ahead and put them in. I'm just using a piece of all thread. This is a hardened metric all thread. Kind of using this to get my length for a bolt to buy. But this side goes on, and I made these spacers. These are all cut to size on a lathe. This one fits this side. Then I'll go around and I'll get the other side put on. So this is this one's just a little bit shorter for this side. Hopefully they all fit. See all these bolts I got sitting right here? And you gotta go up a little. I'm using a ratchet strap right here to position the engine. That's how we got our measurements and lined it up. That's started. Let me go ahead and just run those in real quick. There's that side. that the other one come over here. And down and bolt. Other bolt. Tight. Tight. So there it is. So the those top spacers, get to this side, you can see better. Those spacers I showed you, those are actually going to get TIG welded to the bracket, so that'll all be one piece, and we'll powder coat that to match the frame. But that's, engine's bolted in right now. Next step, we'll have to take the engine back out to weld in and clean up all this stuff down here. I'm not going to weld that with the engine in, but let's just take this off real quick. Obviously it's not the same as when the engine's running, but that it's bolted in solid now. And the problem was we had to get this just right. If you look up here, there's very minimal clearance anywhere on this engine. Look down here. So this thing had to come out just right to where nothing's vibrating on the frame or anything. That's not to say if we ever have to take this engine side cover or anything out, there's a good chance we'll probably have to pull the engine again. But next step, we'll take the engine out and we'll start welding in those clearances and clean that all up, make it look nice. So we'll be right back. Alright guys, so let me show you what we got going on here. We basically got a lot of welding left to do right now. We've got front engine mounts are done. They're tacked back here on the spacers, so those are ready to come off, get fully welded. I just tacked these on for now, because then I'll grind all this excess off and nice weld it all the way around and finish the rail and everything. So that's just held on to stay in place. If you come around here, Christy, we relocated the rear shock. So this is moved back a ½ inch, and what that does is that gives us our clearance on the reservoir right here. So that's just welded across the top. I got to weld everything else, and then it's going to get a plate across here too. One of the cool things that we are doing with this is, if you look here, we're doing center exit exhaust. So we just got this all fitted up. I made this bracket just to hold it in place. This is not the bracket that we're going to use to mount. We're actually going to use tubing and make it look like factory right here across the frame. So that's just holding it so we could clamp it and get it in line while we did all the pipe over here. If you come over here. So we just got this exhaust pipe all pie cut, and it's just tacked together right now. So that all needs finished welded. But you can see there's tons of clearance all the way around everywhere. And it's a nice transition here. There's no sharp bends or anything. Our plan the whole time was to have center exit exhaust even before we stole this engine from the machine. And it just so happened that this pipe fit pretty damn good. A few obstacles we still have to come is the radiator. Our fan doesn't fit here on the radiator. What we're hoping to be able to do is mount a fan on front of it, drawing or pushing through. So we put the fan over here just to kind of check clearances and stuff. We're hoping, we're getting a Mishimoto radiator for sure. But we're probably gonna get a Mishimoto slimline fan, a pusher fan, and then make brackets to mount it up here and get as big a fan as we can get for this thing. That's what we're hoping for. That's one of the biggest obstacles we gotta come over. Carburetor and everything fits right now. It's not on here because we're getting ready to take everything back off of this again and do a bunch of finish welding and shit. But carburetor fits. We might get an air boot and do a big filter or something. We're not sure yet, but it's got a filter on the carb right now, which is how we got it. I'd like to go with a bigger filter, but we'll see what we can get. Like maybe like a 3-inch filter in here or something. I don't know. We'll figure that out. But as of right now, we could bolt that on. If this is wired, we're ready to run with the exhaust. I don't know. There's a lot to go still. Trying to get all this mock-up custom shit done first, which is going pretty smooth so far. I don't want to jinx it or anything, but we're probably going to call it good for this video. Throw in some flashes of welding here. Stay tuned, and there's a lot more to come. This thing's coming along pretty quick, but we're going to do powder coating, everything on this. Everything is going to get done right here in the garage. So stay tuned if you're interested. Let us know what you think. Make sure to like and subscribe. Comment what you think. Tell us how you think this is going or your opinion of it. But till next video, see you later.